and I'm about to read you the next installment of Ezekiel Kralen's story of the two dogs, Flacco and Lucky, and his friend, we'll call him Deke, who lives in the street and comes around periodically demanding money and gets Ezekiel to charge up his various devices in the apartment. The Muffin Chapter is the title of this. Ezekiel Kralen wrote, email correspondence, January 10th and 11th. I've never been that happy in my entire life. Date, January 10th, morning. Watson wrote, great letters the last couple of days. Deke said, I love you. I'm gabberflasted. I replied, he's said that before, twice in the past 2 years. Usually after telling me he loves me, I can expect a screaming fit next time he shows up, but I think this time will be different. Watson wrote, the doggy reports are most encouraging. He really does seem to be doing an excellent job taking care of them, with your help, of course, and you straightening him out when he needs it. I replied, well, I was hoping so, but when I stepped out a half hour ago, here he comes walking in my direction, the doggies sweaterless and sopping wet. They were in good cheer anyway, and not shivering. He begged me for another allowance advance of a full $50. I really need it. I told him, no, you don't, but I'll give it to you anyway. I got to go to the bank first. This is what happens sometimes when I step out for coffee. I get punished for the sin of trying to have a calm morning. He gave me the JBL speaker and smartphone to recharge, of course, but this time there was an old pair of sneakers and one of the plaid doggy sweaters lodged inside the granny cart. Where's the other sweater? I asked. Back in my tent, the dogs didn't like them and kept pulling them off, he replied. No, they didn't, I retorted. They love their sweaters, and you should have kept them on because even when they're wet, the sweaters will keep them warm. You need to stop lying. You took the sweaters off yourself. Anyway, I slogged off to the Chase branch, withdrew the money, then stopped by Rosenberg's for my morning brew on the way back. He said he'll return in a half hour, so I figured I have a little time to myself, but when I turned the corner to sit a few minutes on some sheltered steps, there he was at the bus stop in front of my building, waving and calling at me. He got his money, thanked me, then took off toward downtown, but all of a sudden he turned around in my direction where I was about to open the gate and lug the electronic beast inside, so I just stood there as they approached, and the pups started barking with joy, hoping to come inside. I'm not going to open the gate till you walk by, I addressed him, because I don't want to disappoint them about not taking them upstairs. He said okay, and moved along, though stopped just 15 feet away and lashed the mutts to a post, whereby he entered the Hohokam smoke shop. Geez, I thought, so he really needs the money for what, a cigar? Then I stepped inside, bracing the heavy wooden door against my shoulder as I wheeled the granny cart into the lobby. And there was Kevin, sitting on the lowest step and diddling with his smartphone, so I had to wait for him to stand up and move aside, but he did that surprisingly fast, in spite of his geriatric wobbliness. I thought he might scorn me for helping Deke store such a heavy item, but he spoke not a word. Well, he's not all there anymore, Watson, so perhaps he thought I was returning from the laundromat. As I set the JBL near an outlet, I discovered something else lodged in the cart. A small propane canister. Oh, brother. So now I'm back inside typing this missive, but I still need to tell you what happened shortly before I stepped out and ran into Deke and the Brindlekin. I exited my hovel to use the restroom down the side hallway, when who should I almost bump into but Scooter. He was dressed in casual clothing and a pair of slippers, as if he lived here. I continued on to the restroom, and he walked straight ahead, so now what? I thought, well, seated on the throne. Will he be waiting outside to use the toilet? And guess what? He was right there, about 5 feet away when I exited and closed the door shut, which locks it as well. Scooter then politely spoke with hands flattened together in prayer. Please, please let me in there. I sighed and said, well, okay, and unlocked the door, then rushed back to my room. At least it stopped raining for the moment, and the sun is actually shining through. Oops, I spoke too soon. The clouds just spread across the sky like it's going to rain again, very soon. I think I'll reheat the coffee, which by now is room temp, and toast me an English muffin. I've never been that happy in my entire life. Date January 10th, early afternoon. Watson wrote, English muffins give me reason to live. I replied, it's the crunch with the munch that I love a bunch, for breakfast, supper, or even lunch. 2 quick visits, then gone. Date January 10th, late afternoon. Watson wrote, referring to my saccharine greeting to Kevin, this is good. Kill him with kindness. I replied, 2 down, 1 to go. Watson wrote, referring to my club-footed serial killer vignette, now that's inspired. And then 6 bang marks after that for some reason. I replied, I had fun conjuring up that one. The stormy gray sky made for a perfect backdrop, not to mention the creaky old turn-of-the-last-century building itself, with cheaply carpeted floors and a fading blood stain on the stairway wall. Watson wrote, I know, people are so willing and eager to jump on the Fauci the villain bandwagon, we should be putting up statues of him and heaping on him medals of honor and Nobel Prizes and brass Figleges. Filiges. I don't think that's a word. I replied, that's right, but such is the way true heroes are treated, almost like a mark of courage. Watson wrote, referring to the impact I've had on the MCN mailing list. There's a small but howling lynch mob faction who would drag me out of my house and tar and feather me if they knew you're on the list because of me. I just sit back like Empress Messalina and watch the tiny mortals scurry about. I replied, what fun, always at your service, my osmium empress of the nether worlds. Subject, 2 dogs are okay for emergency shelter, according to this article. Date January 11th, morning. Dick didn't bother to seek protection from the storm. However, a homeless outreach agent did try to get him into a shelter and said they're all booked up. And according to the article, it's just a 24-hour reprieve, so I guess the unhoused must stand outside in a long line out there in the rain each and every time through this string of storms. So how can I really blame Deke under such a Kafkaesque scenario? Heavy, unabating drizzle, quote, light rain since 9:30 a.m. Deke has not dropped by since yesterday afternoon to pick up his JBL party box. I forgot to return the sweater, which I hung to dry. It was only slightly damp in the first place, so right when he began to walk away, I said, hold on, Deke, let me rush upstairs to get you that sweater. It's dry now. No, thanks, he replied. I might come back for it tonight. I didn't believe he would, and he didn't. So there's only one doggy sweater, if any, back at his campsite. Regardless, I do hope he's keeping the pups warm and dry in that tent, which he may or may not really be using, with those 2 sleeping bags that he may or may not have any more, that may or may not be soaking wet at this point. Meanwhile, yesterday morning I had another run-in with Scooter, this time in the lobby, where he was about to exit. He thanked me again for allowing him to use the shared commode. So I said, doesn't Carlson have his own bathroom? He replied that yes, he does, but the toilet's clogged. That figures. So now what, Watson? Is he going to start knocking on my door whenever he needs to take a dump? Or will Carlson bother to inform the manager to get that toilet repaired? I'd rather not complain to Kevin about a homeless guy who appears to have moved in thanks to Carlson's stupidity, even though Scooter may be dangerous due to his local history of walking around out front, screaming and cussing like the meth freak he is. In other words, I am not the least bit assuaged by his polite demeanor of recent vintage, and Kevin is just too untrustworthy a manager to take any complaint I have seriously. But if Scooter does start knocking on my door, I will certainly complain nonetheless. I don't think he knows exactly where I reside, and I hope it stays that way, though not knowing whether or not I'll encounter him whenever I step out of my room is not a pleasant way to live, nor do I deserve this new stress factor in my world. I also am concerned he may start asking me to let him inside the building, should he see me enter or leave, or even start calling up to my window for that, in which case I'll probably go over Kevin's head and call the SFPD. Last night around 11 p.m. I heard his shrill, repeated whistle and hollering up to Carlson. Whether eventually he got inside or not, I have no idea, but this shit's got to end. Here's another gruesome thought for you, Watson. Imagine if Scooter remains residing here for weeks, until a gag-inducing rotten smell from that unit overwhelms the hallway and the homeless intruder gets arrested for illegally occupying a studio apartment paid for by a resident who is now a corpse. Cue appropriate Twilight Zone theme music here. Read, 2 dogs are okay for emergency shelter, according to this article, date January 11th, early afternoon. Watson wrote, not even remotely far-fetched. I replied, I'm putting it all on record via my tales regarding further incidents of lousy management that may further empower my oncoming lawsuit. Surely a rotting corpse will help my case immensely, or even just what's going on now, but a decomposing occupant is preferable, so keep your fingers crossed. Carlson lives right across Adisa and Mom's old apartment, which I think is now occupied again, though I don't know who it is, but I wonder if the new resident has complained about any disturbances coming from that unit. Considering all the scary stuff that goes on in Hotel California North, I'm surprised most tenants haven't fled in a panic. Well, maybe that explains the high turnover. All we need now is for Adisa to break into the building in a bad batch of meth frenzy, wreaking havoc till he's carted off to jail or an institution. Wouldn't that be dandy? Geez, this gloomy weather is giving me a deluge of gothic musings, but it's all grist for the blog. Mill, as far as I'm concerned. Continuously watching catastrophic climate change doomer videos doesn't help matters any. I feel like the Grim Reaper kicking back with popcorn and Pepsi, witnessing the fruits of his labor ripen. Worse yet, my supply of English muffins ran out yesterday. I only eat the whole wheat variety, but since the supply line for many items has become sporadic, thanks to this ongoing pandemic, local corner stores sometimes take weeks to get a fresh replacement, which supply is usually limited to 2 or 3 packages of 6 muffins each, not counting the sickly white flour equivalent. So I usually snatch them all up, probably to the disappointment of other customers. So whenever I suffer a dearth of muffins, I make my own halva out of 3 rectangular whole wheat Acmac crackers ground to a meal with my blender, 2 dashes of Ceylon cinnamon powder, 3 tablespoons of tahini, and 2 teaspoons of raw honey. Mix it all up and eat with a spoon, washing it down with Rosenberg's golden elixir. In conclusion, were it not for 2 sweet little hounds, I'd have morphed into a basket case long ago. If only they could have sanctuary with me now. I owe them so much. Watson wrote, good evening. I replied, see attachment, audio clip of Alfred Hitchcock's trademark greeting. Christ, how much longer is this? Read, 2 dogs are okay for emergency shelter, according to this article, date January 11th, mid-afternoon. Watson wrote, my absolute favorite English muffins are Rudy's. Can only get them in the little old health food store in Fort Bragg, and they get snatched off the shelf almost instantly. Whole wheat, organic, fantastic flavor and crunchy texture, the best. When I can't get those, the next best are, believe it or not, Safeway's own brand, also whole wheat, very fresh and flavorful. I replied, I just checked Amazon for Rudy's and was delighted to see they sell them too and accept my EBT card. Unfortunately, there's a $4.99 delivery fee for orders less than $35. A package of Rudy's cost $5.79 each. Thus, I'd have to order 7 to avoid delivery fee, so it's off to Safeway I go. Once the rains stop for a while, probably sometime tomorrow, but with my luck, they won't be in stock, in which case I'll order 3 packages of Rudy's English muffins from Amazon, plus whatever else I need that I normally buy around the corner. The whole wheat muffins I get are Oro-Wheat brand, and they're inferior. It's just that they're the only brand of muffins I can buy within walking distance, except Safeway, which I mostly avoid, but I didn't know about their muffins till today. Years ago, I used to buy multigrain English muffins from a health food store in Coal Valley. Incredible. Forgot which brand they were, but they've long since stopped carrying them, and that shop shut down over a decade ago. I've never tasted such a delicious English muffin since. Oro-Wheat's the bottom of the whole wheat muffin barrel, were there such a thing in the first place. Watson wrote, one of these days. I replied, I'm sure my darling Brindlekin will be living with me again, one way or another, perhaps after the apocalypse, when there will be hardly anyone else around, and I can have my pick of housing, including a residence with a big old backyard where the pups can play in safety. I'll keep Deke tied to a chain in one corner of the yard. Watson wrote, I love it, with 7 bang marks. Such memories. Bang. Hitchcock, Twilight Zone, Max Fleischer cartoons, Mad Magazine, all helped shape my young brain. I replied, I knew you'd like it. Just the tersest of greetings that has become the trademark words of a classic voice from the horror genre of our formative years. Now I have a question for you. It's about a word you used at the end of this following sentence from a message you posted me yesterday. I couldn't find it anywhere on the net, including Merriam-Webster, so I'd like to know if it's a real word or a typo. Quote, we should be putting up statues of him and heaping on him medals of honor and Nobel Prizes and black figliges. Subject, what the heck? I just ordered 6. Date January 11, late afternoon. 6 packages of Rudy's whole wheat English muffins coming up. I tried to purchase 7, but the limit is 1 less, so I also ordered an 8-ounce tub of garlic hummus for $2.49, which gave me a grand total of $37.27 via EBT, so no delivery fee. But if you're not careful, you'll miss the suggested $5 tip way at the bottom, which I didn't. So I turned that to 0. Delivery will occur between 7 and 9 p.m. tonight. I have a freezer to store all those muffins, but screw it. I'll eat 2 per day from now on. Perfect for a healthy boy still growing. And last, what the heck? I just ordered 6, date January 11, early evening. Watson wrote, wow, where did you order the muffins from? I replied, Amazon, of course, but I think they're out of stock for a short while, because they don't show up anymore since I ordered 6 packages. So maybe my attempt to purchase 7 was because 6 was all they had left. But I just found a store that sells Rudy's muffins within a short walking distance, Molly Stone's, where Arwen works. Is that funny or what?